समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, former president from 2005 to 2013 for 8 years, a two-term president, and also a particularly infamous one for many reasons. He suddenly hit the headlines, and before I go into why he has hit the headlines and all the interesting details and what it means, let me start with where this story began. The story begins on 28th of February this year. 28th Feb, is when Israelis and the Americans launched their attack on Iran. 28th morning is the big targeted strikes, assassination strikes took place. That's when the entire leadership at that point, especially Ayatollah Khamenei, were assassinated because Israel had hacked all of the traffic cameras of Tehran, so they knew exactly when his convoy and his key officials convoy were going to that particular building on Pasture Street in Tehran. That's also the day when one more bombing took place, which looked like another targeted assassination. This bombing was at a compound, or ultimately, as it turned out, next to a compound at the end of a dead-end street in Narmak area of northeastern Tehran. This was well known in Tehran that this is where Ahmadinejad has lived for a long time. He also had a large number of IRGC security guards, apparently not for his security but also to keep an eye on him, because you don't keep 50 guards or a retinue of 50 guards, such a large retinue that for the guards you had to empty out an entire building which the guards were using. But news spread that he had been assassinated. This was reported by the Iranian media at that point. A lot of the Iranian media, also by the reformist Daily Sharq newspaper, that he'd been assassinated. Now, that created a lot of confusion. Why would the Israelis go and assassinate him? Israelis or American, whoever, but Israelis more likely. Why would they go and assassinate Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who did not count for anything right now? If anything, he had been disgruntled with the current regime. He'd been arguing with them. He was a thorn in their side. He was sending many petitions on citizens' grievances for a long time to the administration. He had also been creating a nuisance. He'd also been creating a nuisance of himself. He'd been wanting to contest elections again. After all, he's just about 70 years old. But 3 times he was rejected by the Guardian Council of the Clergy, which has the final say on who gets to contest, because they were apparently not happy with his performance the last time. He is quite a controversial figure. There are good reasons why I use the expression infamous. He's the one who sort of turbocharged the Iranian nuclear program. He really was committed, almost obsessed with nuclear weapons. He also talked about annihilating, destroying Israel. He was also, again, famously or infamously, a Holocaust denier. So among the Iranians, other people have also taken ambivalent positions on the Holocaust. When I interviewed on Walk the Talk Ali Larijani, and I asked him about the Holocaust, he also sort of went around it. He did not either say that he agreed that Holocaust had taken place, nor did he deny it. He walked around it. But Ahmadinejad had no such problem. And then he carried out really violent crackdowns on any dissidents at a time when inflation was going up and Iran was increasingly coming under sanctions. Now, now these are the reasons that Guardian Council might have used to deny him renomination for a presidential contest to be a candidate. And maybe for all those reasons, he was disgruntled. If he was a disgruntled man, why was he killed? Why would the Israelis kill him? And that is what caused quite a bit of confusion at that point. And in the Western media also, there was quite a bit of discussion. Within days, however, because the Iranian regime did not announce his death, and because word spread that he seems to have escaped. He seems to have escaped during that attack, and maybe he's alive and he's somewhere else. That was sort of forgotten at that time. There was some speculation, and I will come to that. Now a story has come out in the New York Times, and that's the reason we are featuring Ahmadinejad in this episode of Cut the Clutter. This is a story by Mark Mazzetti, Julian Barnes, Farnaz Fasihi, and Ronen Bergman. It says that Israeli intelligence, Mossad, tapped Ahmadinejad, that they had got him compromised to themselves, maybe beginning sometime in 2023, but definitely more formally and more regularly in 2024. And their plan was, at this point, when they attacked this compound, they were not trying to kill him. They attacked the building in which the IRGC guards were located. They also attacked the entrance of the compound, so the guards would be killed. And in that confusion, some people drove in a black Peugeot car and took him away from there to some other place, maybe to a Mossad safe house. And then something really mysterious happened. It looks like he escaped from that Mossad safe house. Either he escaped, the NYT story says, maybe he got disillusioned with the way the Israelis had taken him away. He thought it was too abrupt. Or maybe, and that's a guesswork I'm adding, he figured soon enough that the Iranian regime was not falling. For some reason, he, quote unquote, escaped from the Mossad custody. Whether he escaped, he was let go, we don't know. And he went back to the Iranian side. Since then, he's been under surveillance. Most probably he's under arrest, a kind of house arrest, but in the custody of IRGC intelligence branch. Now what happened on Feb 28 caused a flutter. It caused a flutter, and the first indications of doubts about the bombing of his house and the motives of the bombing came in a March 10 article in the Atlantic magazine written by Graham Wood. And he said that it makes no sense that Israelis would try to kill him. And it looks like he was a candidate for the Israelis for whenever they wanted regime change in Iran, because he'd been disgruntled with the regime for a very long time. And he, in fact, in his article, quotes Sacha Baron Cohen from the movie The Dictator, and I quote, "All my friends have got nuclear weapons, even Ahmadinejad, and he looks like a snitch on Miami Vice." That's because Ahmadinejad was a big promoter of nuclear weapons. So Graham Wood was also wondering, why would the Israelis want to take him away? At the same time, why would the Israelis bother killing him? Because he was a nobody right now. Do Israelis do these things just because they carry old grudges? In the article, Graham Wood writes, and quite presciently I would say, the circumstances of his survival may prove significant as the war drags on. If it's published on March 10, must have been written a few days earlier. So Graham Wood is writing this within 5 or 6 days of the bombing, the news of Ahmadinejad's death, and then his supposed escape. He also analyzes Ahmadinejad in terms of his importance and why the Iranian regime struggles to deal with him. Because one, he's an insider. He's too much of an insider. He knows too much about them, or they would put him away quite easily. If they arrest him, he talks too much, then that can expose the regime. Also, at some point of time, he had collected, he says, IOUs with the supreme leader as well. Graham Wood, therefore, takes us back to something a former defense minister of Iran, that is Hussein Dagan, had said in 2018. He had compared Ahmadinejad, and I'm quoting, to the door of the mosque, which can't be burned or thrown away. That means you don't need him. He's just a spare door, but you can't burn it, you can't throw it away. You have to endure with him. That is the man who's hit the headlines now. It's just that after January protests in Iran, when the Iranian regime was getting more and more worried about dissidence and about challenge to its authority that they just increased his security detail, which means they increased surveillance on him. That is when they took that additional building in which they housed such a large number of IRGC guards, which was bombed on February 28. From then, the scene now shifts to this New York Times story. That's why this Cut the Clutter is based on two essential readings. There are lots of readings, but the two essential readings are this Atlantic article, see it on your screen, and also the New York Times article, see that on your screen also. The lead reporter and writer on the New York Times article is Mark Mazzetti. He's one of the topmost reporters on intelligence in Washington. He wrote the famous book, The Way of the Knife, from which I've quoted in the past a couple of times. That is the story of how the CIA in Afghanistan, post 9/11, how it morphed into a killing machine from an intelligence organization. His byline gives this story a great deal of credibility. However, many questions will remain as we come to the conclusions, or if we can draw any conclusions at all. Now, this story tells us that in 2023, it looks like there was an environmental conference in Guatemala. Guatemala is a Latin American country. It's also a country which has probably the closest relations with Israel in Latin America. In 2023, Ahmadinejad wanted to go to an environmental conference. There is something about climate change and environment and this huge espionage story. Now, he wanted to go. It looks like he went to the airport, but the Iranian administration or the airport guards would not let him go because they were not giving him a boarding pass. That's when he sat on dharna there, started taking his pictures with other passengers, posting them on social medias and embarrassing the regime. Finally, they let him go. It looks like that is when he made one active contact with Mossad, or let me put it more correctly, that is when Mossad made its first active contact with him. Then the scene shifts to 2024. Early 2024, Professor Gargili Delai, who heads the Ludovica University of Public Service in Budapest, in Hungary, he got an approach from a top Hungarian official that he should hold a climate change conference. I told you climate change runs like a thread through this story, that he should hold a conference on climate change, and on that conference, he must invite Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. He was also told, it was indicated to him, that's what the invitee expose says, it was indicated to him by this high Hungarian official that the idea was for Ahmadinejad to meet some top Israeli officials there. Now, Professor Delai, who later says that I was like a front man, or I was like a go-between. He uses a German expression which is like a front man. He says that, look, I thought two sides are fighting each other, two enemies. They want to talk each other. You can bring them together. It's a good thing. So the exact quote from him in the story is, you have two enemies, and if these enemies want to talk with each other, then it's best to do what you can to make them talk. Now, this talk happened early 2024. Then a second visit took place, in 2024, and a third visit took place barely days before Israel launched the June 2025 attacks on Iran. In the course of these visits, he met David Barnea, who was then the Mossad chief. In fact, he was Mossad chief for 5 years and finished his tenure just about a month back. So he flew to Budapest in Hungary and met Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Now the story is that Israelis were grooming him, cultivating him, etc., in the hope that when this regime collapses, or when they make this regime collapse, maybe through assassinations, sanctions, whatever, a combination of everything, then they will have somebody from inside available to take over, and somebody who in any case has a great deal of following, particularly among the working classes in Iran. It looks like that did not work, and the failure of that operation, if anything, became evident on Feb 28 or post Feb 28, when obviously Mossad agents in that black Peugeot took Ahmadinejad away from his compound to some safe house, but he did not stay with them. Why he did not stay with them? How he escaped them? Did he jump a wall? Did the Mossad agents just let him go? Or was the idea to let him escape? We don't know we don't know answers to any of those questions. However, those questions will continue to be asked as we go along. Now, what other evidence is there that there was some Israeli secret operation that had a key role for Ahmadinejad? We still don't know where Ahmadinejad belongs. I will also not rule out the possibility that he was actually a double agent for the Iranian side, for his own country, pretending to be a Mossad agent and then escaped. I don't know. Nobody knows anything because he's around. He's around and he's been seen. I will bring you to that. He's been seen. He's not been hidden away. He's not been sent to any gulag. Not until 10 days back. That was the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei because he was seen there. Now, NYT quotes Tamir Haman. Tamir Haman is a former Israeli Defense Forces intelligence chief. In May this year, in a PBS public broadcast service show called Firing Line, he said that regime change in Iran was going to be a sequel of special operations, very, very unique, that was supposed to happen, and Ahmadinejad was part of that sequence. Now, once again, a question comes up that if Ahmadinejad was supposed to be such a key part of that operation, why were the Israelis talking about it in May when the operation apparently had failed? And why has all this stuff leaked about him? Because what this does is that if he was actually compromised to Mossad and was agreeing to be a Mossad agent, or if not an agent, to be their candidate to take over power in his country, then he's toast, because then IRGC will not let him survive. They will take his quote-unquote statement very many times. He may be subjected repeatedly to what, for harsh language, is used as a euphemism, extracting statements out of him. He will not be treated well. At the same time, if this was some other complicated game, then we don't know. Many other questions arise in this case. As I told you earlier, this will leave us with more questions than answers, because the story as such, the facts of the story, I don't doubt. But the conclusions leave themselves open to a lot of questions. Why would Ahmadinejad sell out to the Israelis? As his former colleagues, also his former senior advisor Abdul Reza Dabari has been quoted as saying, he won't do it for money. He's a rich man. He's got a lot of money. He won't do it for money. If he would do it, he would do it because he wants to come back to power. He left power too young. Remember, 2013 when he left, he was still in his late 50s. So he would still have ambitions, and he thought his ambitions were thwarted by the clergy and the supreme leader, who did not let him contest again. He started doing other things to draw attention also in the past. 2017, when Trump was in his first term, he wrote letters to Trump and Mohammed bin Salman also. And Trump at that point also praised him for it. So that drew suspicion in Iran immediately. At the same time, Iranians had nothing to catch him. However, what happened in 2024 in Hungary, in Budapest, and early 2025 was more dramatic. Because by this time, a lot of the international media had noted, and also some Iranian media had noted, that Ahmadinejad was changing his image. He was now dressing in sharp suits instead of his trademark sort of khaki duffel coats. He was looking different. Even his beard was now well kept. It was not disorderly as in the past. And he had begun to speak a lot of English. He was learning English. In fact, on his last visit to Budapest at Ludovica University, which had now become his frequently visited university, he delivered a speech in English. And even the IRGC detail accompanying him noted that he delivered the speech in English. He dispensed with his usual Quranic verses and invocations, and also he gave a gift to the university president, Professor Delhi, which was Book of Kings by Firdausi, who's a well-known Persian poet, who was a well-known Persian poet. Also on that trip, it looks like he disappeared a couple of times. IRGC detail accompanying him reported on that. He just said he had gone out to meet some professor. So all of this creates many questions, because if all these suspicions were there, how was he not put away, or how was he not arrested, or how was he not interrogated by the Iranians? And how was he not interrogated by the Iranians? And then finally, in spite of all that, how come he was seen at Khamenei's funeral? So he was seen at Khamenei's funeral. He was wearing a heavy jacket. It was hot weather, 32, 33 degrees centigrade in Tehran that day, very crowded, but he was wearing a heavy jacket. Nobody knows why. He also had a mask which had slipped down to his chin, obviously because somebody wanted the world to see that he was alive and he was there, and he was either in Iranian regime's custody, or he was a part of the Iranian regime, or staying loyal with the Iranian regime. So we don't know whether it was Mossad using him to play games with the Iranian regime, or Iranian regime was using him to play games with Mossad. Now I will tell you two things. One, please see this tweet. This is by Professor Marandi, who is one of the most prominent and most articulate spokesmen of the Iranian regime. He says there, he's trying to give you his analysis on why this stuff is leaked about Ahmadinejad. He says that this is probably somebody's way of threatening and alerting all their agents and all their spies that, look, if you don't cooperate fully with us, we will out you and you will face the consequences. Once again, you can read this Professor Marandi tweet in terms of your own analysis. My analysis would be that he is still keeping the ambiguity. He is not condemning Ahmadinejad. He is not saying we've got him now. See, we've got him now. See, we made sure the Mossad operation failed. You can't get our people to compromise. Nor has he said, see, Ahmadinejad is so loyal to us. You thought he will sell out his country. No Iranian leader would do that. He's not saying any of that. He's kept it ambiguous. At the same time, I would say this tweet is quite significant, because this is directed to the outside world, to people like us who analyze what is coming out of Iran. At the same time, it is directed at an internal audience as well, and also Israeli agents and spies, more of whom probably are found in Iran or located in Iran than in any other country in the world. The second significant thing I will tell you, besides the fact that he was there with his mask on his chin, so the world could see his face and cameras could catch him, he was surrounded by a bunch of people who looked like guards, but importantly, two other living former presidents, that is Hassan Rouhani and Mohammad Khatami. They were not present at the funeral. So why were they not present at the funeral? But Ahmadinejad, who today, if all the story is correct, should be treated as a traitor, was present. So is it the Iranian regime flaunting him to tell the Israelis and the Americans that, look, we've got your man. You thought that you got him compromised and you were going to topple us using him, but now we've got him. If he's your man, come and take him. So this is a statement of defiance. Now this can also lead to two conclusions. One is just to tell the Israelis, also the Americans, but mostly the Israelis, look, we've got your man. You got this man compromised. He had become your man, but now we've got him. We'll treat him as we wish. That is one thing. The second argument, which may come up because the two other former living presidents were not present at the funeral, that is Hassan Rouhani and Mohammad Khatami, is that Iranian regime is saying, listen, you thought he was your man? He's our man. He was always our man. So much so that he's the only former president we've invited at this funeral. So we don't know what the answers are. That's the reason I told you very early on that this is a fascinating story, but it leaves us with more questions than answers.